So today we're going to talk about Anand. It's a familiar word for Eastern world and even more also for Western world. In fact, there is a special chemical which is almost like cannabinoid type of uh, enzyme that has been discovered in the human brains. It's called anandamide. So it is based on it's a sense of well-being. It gives you a sense of well-being like dopamine. So it's a hormone that's been derived, and the name has been derived from the Anand. Anand is something that we're going to talk about today. Uh, so before we understand the Anand, we need to understand a couple of other terminologies so that we can understand the meaning of Anand in real detail. First of all, we have pleasure, that we experience pleasure uh, in the world. And pleasure is defined by the stimulation, anything that stimulates your sense organs. Say, if you like ice cream, you tasted the ice cream and you had a good time. So you derived a pleasure at the tongue level. And a beautiful music, you listen to the nice music and it made you feel good. So again, that's another sense organ that has come into action and that will give you pleasure. So the pleasure means anything that is happening at your sense levels. And we have five senses: eyes, ears, nose, touch, smell, like that. So whenever there is a pleasure, is at the body level. And then what is happiness then? Happiness is your experience that your mind decides what it likes. So pleasure is the starting point, and then the happiness is generated in the mind itself. So those are the two things. The next one is a joy. Joy is a deep-seated emotion of, it's a type of happiness, of course, but it's more like elation, more a bhav, deep-seated feeling about happiness. And these are the three definitions you have to understand. Then you can go on to the Anand, which is beyond these three. So when it comes to pleasure, we all understand that whatever makes us happy, we go after it. And what are we doing? We are seeking pleasure. So drinking beer makes you happy. So you go and seek the pleasure uh, from the beer. So you try to drink a beer, and then you will have a pleasure, and that will lead to happiness. What is the problem with that? The whole world is caught up in all these things, actually. And everybody is seeking pleasure all the time. The whole sansar is running after something that will make them happy. So the pleasure is always in a demand. Whether you get pleasure from people, you get pleasure from objects or situations, going to a bar, traveling, any of these things or any combination of all these things will generate the pleasure, and you will have the happiness. The only problem is all these things come to an end at some point. You go on a vacation, 1 week, 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks, but at the end, you have to come back and go back to your normal routine. Sooner or later, the happiness ends. You like a certain girlfriend, say you became friends and you're really happy with her, but then at some point she decides to change her mind and goes to someone else. Happiness disappears. Or even if she stays with you, the happiness after 6 months, 12 months doesn't stay the same. Then you change from within, and then another girl may appear to you. Just for example, these are like reality examples that we can talk about. The same thing, if you like sweet dishes, you eat it, enjoy it. But then when your diabetes is diagnosed and the doctor says you have to give it up, and you become reluctant and you become unhappy that you have to give it up. So what I'm saying is, in sansar, happiness is something that comes and goes. And why is that? Because everything in sansar is finite. You cannot have infinite pleasure from finite things. What is finite? Everything is finite. Are you finite? Were you born? Sure. Are you going to die? Sure. How about your relatives? Same thing. Your spouse, your parents, everything that is born will certainly die. So same thing that is happens to the happiness that is generated from the sansar. Sansar means everything that moves is sansar. It comes from a Sanskrit word san sharan. Anything that moves is sansar. So sansar, the reason it's moving, because there is a continuous transformation happening. Everybody that is part of this sansar, again, whether there's objects or people or situations, they go through 4 stages: birth, growth, decay, and death. So this sequence is maintained by everybody in the world, everything in the world. Some of the things have a longer lifespan, like mountains and things like that, rivers, and they last longer than us, but sooner or later, they also come to a demise. So we have to understand that anything that is created in sansar will be remaining temporary. And it will be finite. Sooner or later, it will come to an end. Happiness will turn into unhappiness. Pleasure will turn into pain. You make money in stock market, you're very happy, and suddenly market crashes, it becomes unhappiness. So whenever you're running into the sansar seeking pleasure, looking for happiness, you have to be ready, but we are not. Are we ready? No, we don't want to accept it. We think that once we invested in such and such stock, it's going to keep going forever. It doesn't happen. Sooner or later, the drop comes. And same thing, you think that this girlfriend or my boyfriend is going to be mine forever. My parents will be around forever. A lot of things, we want those things. Why do we want it? I don't know. Isn't that silliness to expect something which is finite for that to live forever, infinite? It is. And that's why all these definitions we need to understand. So next comes the joy. So joy, again, is at a higher level. It's an emotional state and a much deep-seated bhav. Bhav means attitude, but that also can turn into sorrow. If the whole situation changes, you may not be focused on overall one person or an object or a situation, but if the situations keep on changing for a permanent, then your elation, your sense of joy starts turning into suffering. So these 3 steps are very important to understand, that they are coming from the sansar. And for that, people are running outward. They are utilizing their body and they're utilizing their sense organs to come in contact with the objects, people, or situations in contact with their sense organs so that they can stimulate them, they can make them feel happy. The Anand is a different story. Anand is something which is beyond the mind. It comes after connecting with the consciousness. In meditation, when you meditate, you observe your own thoughts. Your thoughts invariably are going to be about this object, people, situation, or sansar, in effect. So everything you're thinking about is thinking about sansar. And sansar is temporary. It is finite. So it's anything that is coming out of the finite will be finite. And that is the reason why we have to be able to understand that once you go beyond the sansar, there is peace and tranquility, and there is Anand. Anand is located when you go into the deep-seated state of awareness. And in meditation, when you become aware of your thoughts, which are related to the sansar, little by little, with practice, you start separating the sansar, which is part of your mind, and who is observing the sansar. It takes time. It's not simple. It's not easy. But anything that is observed and the observer cannot be one. It has to be separate. So when you open your eyes and you say, okay, I had such and such thoughts, just the way you say, I had such and such dream. So the same way, when you report that you had X number of thoughts, such thoughts, these thoughts, quality, quantity of thoughts, all those things, who is giving the report? inside within you is that state of consciousness. The consciousness is aware that thoughts are coming and going. So what is aware of finite has to be infinite. It's like a train which is going very fast. If you're standing on the platform and you can tell that, okay, this train went at 120 miles an hour because you were standing. The same way, the consciousness is steady. It is just observing. And if you realize that all the thoughts which are moving ultimately are witnessed by an entity which is very steady in a sthit prajna state, and that is your consciousness. In the consciousness, you develop and you meet the sensations of Anand. It is not just the sensation that is perceived at your sense level, it is your state of existence, because the consciousness is beyond your mind. Mind is in control of your sense organs, right? So mind and the sense organs, whatever it is dealing with, they are dealing with is finite, but one which is aware of the thoughts and sansar is infinite. And why is it infinite? Because it has no shape, no size, no color. It is a spirit. Consciousness cannot be divided, but everything in the world can be divided. You and me can be divided. Christians and Hindus can be divided. Hindus and Muslims can be divided. Winter and spring can be divided. So all these things that keep on changing is operated by the time. The time keeps on bringing new changes, and the new changes keep on happening. And that's why all the experiences of this sansar are finite, but not the consciousness, because consciousness is awareness and has nothing to do with the time. And this experience that you get of being connected with the consciousness is a state of Anand. You know, Buddha always said that there is no happiness, actually, when you go into the state, in the state of nirvana, which is beyond the mind. And when you reach to the state of nirvana, there is no suffering, because the suffering is located at your mind level. And why is that? Because at the mind level, you are finite. You are tall, then you like the short people. If you're short, you like the tall people. If you're white, you hate the black. If you're black, you hate the white. All those divisions creates frictions and leads to suffering. Rich, poor, day, night, all these dualities are created in the finite world. And because of these dualities, there is suffering. And that's why Buddha said, you transcend your mind. You do dhyan, meditation, and go beyond the mind. And when you go beyond the mind, there is Anand. Anand means absence of suffering. It's not a positive state of joy or happiness or nothing like that, but there is tremendous amount of peace and tranquility. But what is so special about Ananda? Because, like we said, joy, pleasure, and happiness are coming from sansar, so they're going to be finite. But Anand is not coming from sansar, it is coming from the consciousness, which is immortal, because it cannot be changed. It is not subjected to the time, because it is beyond the time. It was never born, so it was never going to die. So any sensations that you experience after experiencing the samadhi state of the total consciousness, all those feelings, the sensations that you will experience will be permanent, because it will not have opposites. Just like in the sansar, happiness has unhappiness, day has night, winter has summer, rich has poor, all these things, dualities exist. But in the consciousness, there is Anand. Anand cannot change into anything else, because it is derived from the non-dual consciousness, the Advait state. So Anand is derived from the Advait state, and that's why there is no Dvait for Anand. Anand is a permanent sense of joy or beyond. That is very difficult to describe, because only you can say it only once you experience it yourself. So beyond the mind, the words actually fall short. So Anand, what is the advantage of reaching the state of Anand? One, because you will be in a continuous sense of Anand all the time. And any situation will happen, your Anand cannot turn into suffering ever. So if that's the case, that means any sansaric situation changes, you will be still happy. If you get sukh, you'll be happy. If you get dukh, you'll be happy. If you get happiness, you'll be happy. If you get unhappiness, you'll be still happy. Because that state is very unique state. It stands apart by itself, and that is Anand. I remember when we were kids, we were told this story of Anandi Kagado. I'm sorry, it's in the Gujarati, but Anandi means happy. Crow. Kagado is a crow. So apparently there is a story of a king who really got angry on one of the crows, and he told his soldiers that throw him into the well. Let's see, I want to punish him. So the soldiers picked up the crow and threw him in the well, which was full of water. But the crow was not unhappy. He says, "Oh, I'm enjoying the swimming. I was wanted to take a swimming lessons anyway. So I get a chance to swim." So the king got very upset. He says, "I'm throwing him in the well, and how come he's becoming happy? So let me take him out." That's not punishment. Somebody who is suffering from your punishment, then there is a pleasure in giving the punishment. But if somebody is not suffering, then what's the joy? There is no happiness in giving the punishment. So he had the crow pick them up, told the soldiers to pick him up and put him in the well of oil. And the crow, once he was in the oil, then also he was singing all the time, "Lord, I never swam in the oil. In the oil, I can swim very easily, even better than the water. I enjoy this. I enjoy this over here." Again, it's a child story, but the meaning is very powerful. Spiritual meaning is very powerful. Same thing that goes on. He says, "I'm going to throw," he makes his soldiers throw into the well of ghee, which is clarified butter. But he enjoys eating clarified butter. So again, he's not complaining of any discomfort. Then he has his soldiers throw him into the thorns. And he says, "Oh, I feel like a flower right between the thorns. Thorns don't bother me." So finally, the king got fed up. He says, "You know what? There is nothing I can do to that make him unhappy. You know what? Just throw him on the roof." And he went onto the roof and flew away. He says, "Well, this is my territory. I enjoy going from roof to roof flying. So I'm never going to be unhappy." So Anand is that state in any life situation. If you create that connection with your consciousness, you will be always happy in a permanent state. You will be in a state of Anand. So that's why it's very important to go on a spiritual path, to go within, go beyond the body, beyond the mind, and into your soul, and you realize this state of Anand. Because the life is going to bring happiness and is going to bring unhappiness also. So what will be your attitude once you are in a state of Anand? In the state of Anand, when you have happiness, you'll be thanking this higher consciousness to bring you happiness. And when it brings unhappiness, you can always say that, "Oh, see, there are two advantages of getting unhappiness. One, it shows the real nature of sansar, that sansar is filled with happiness and unhappiness, both. And also, the another is that when you get unhappiness, you realize that if I become unhappy in sansar, where is the permanent happiness?" So that becomes a boost on the spiritual path for you to rise higher and seek something that is immortal, something that is permanent. So this is, in short, is a description of Anand, which never turns into anything else. It's a permanent state of Anand. Have a good day.